Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to week 5 of the Sustainability Business and Entrepreneurship Lecture Series. We have Trey with us today, who I'm going to introduce in a moment. But first, I'll just make a few announcements and introductions about us and our co-sponsors. This is the fourth lecture in this lecture series. Um, It happens every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. on Zoom. So we have four more this quarter. Next week, we have Micah Sherman from Raven Grass. So stay tuned. You can join from the same link that you're joining from today. I'm Paige. I'm the assistant director of the Celtic, which is the Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership and Transformational Change. We're a public service center here on the Olympia campus of Evergreen. We host this lecture series. We have a few certificates in the continuing education program, and we have daytime course offerings. We're currently working on coordinating internships for spring quarter. So if you're a student at Evergreen or if you're a community partner and you're interested in working with us, please reach out at celtic@evergreen.edu. Co-sponsor is Thurston Green Business, which is a designation you can get through the Thurston Chamber of Commerce. It's free and easy to apply. So if you're a business owner and you're interested, check out their website January 1st through February 28th. That's the deadline to apply for 2025. Our fiscal sponsor is the Clean Energy Committee. So we're funded in full by this student-led committee with the mission to support clean energy projects and share sustainability strategies here at Evergreen. Just a reminder, we have this survey that was sent out to all students, and it will close on November 22nd. So if you haven't filled that survey out yet, please take time to do so. It really helps fund legislative initiatives for the next legislative section. We have a movie screening coming up. It's free. There will be snacks and coffee. Please come. It's Monday, November 18th from 3 to 5:30 p.m. at the House of Welcome Longhouse here on the Olympia campus. It's an 80-minute film followed by a panel discussion. This film highlights Indigenous activism, treaty rights, climate action, and focuses specifically on the decades-long struggle for fishing rights. So please check it out. Trey is our speaker today. So Dr. Trey Larant is a queer and trans physical therapist and business owner. He earned his doctorate in physical therapy in 2018 from the University of Wisconsin's bachelor's degree in Spanish in 2015. He was sent out to Olympia for his last clinical rotation, fell in love with the area, and has been here ever since. In 2023, he opened Evergreen Wellness Co., a cash pay physical therapy and wellness clinic focused on providing LGBTQ plus competent healthcare in West Olympia. In the clinic, Trey treats a variety of orthopedic injuries with a particular passion for endurance athletes, teen athletes, and the trans community. In his spare time, you'll find him enjoying time outside with his dog Milo, including running, hiking, backpacking, playing tennis, skiing, and snowboarding. So, without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Trey.
Hey everybody, it's nice to be here. Thank you, Paige and Tamsin, for hosting me. Like they said before, my name's Trey. I am a physical therapist in West Olympia. I've been in this area about 6 years now. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a queer and trans physical therapist, and I feel honored to be able to finally be in a location in a place in my career that I can be open about who I am and be able to treat the patients that I want to treat. What I'm going to do today is kind of give you an overview of what I would like to share. And then at the end, I'm going to leave it open for questions for anybody. So I want to share a little bit about my background, why I started this business and how I started it. Obviously, I'm new to this. I made a bunch of mistakes along the way, as I sure I will continue to do so. So I'd like to share some of those with you so y'all don't make the same mistakes I did. How my clinic is running now that I've been open about a year and a half, and then some questions at the end. So to go back just about who I am, born and raised in Wisconsin, I always was into sports growing up. I knew that I was different from about the age of 5. And Olympia, I like to think, is a pretty open community. I feel honored to walk on the streets and see rainbow flags and hear people talking about their partners. And where I grew up, that was not the case. Where I grew up, there's more cows and farms than people. There is no rainbow flags. The one gay person I knew was the one who was beat up every day, and trans just didn't exist. So I use sports as my way to fit in school. I use sports as my way to get along. And of course, people are going to decide to call me right in the middle of the presentation. Sorry about that. So I used my sports as a way to escape. And I always wanted to be able to do something to help others. Both my parents are teachers. So I like to think that I teach in a way, just not about math or science, but about subjects I'm passionate about. So I went off to school. I got sent out here for internships, and I fell in love with a community that was open and a community that I could wear shorts in year round to run. I didn't have to shovel snow every day. And I came out here to work, and I loved being a physical therapist. But I also saw a lot of things about the medical community that I wasn't proud to be a part of. And I'm sure we've all experienced, whether you're somebody in the queer community or not, discrepancies in healthcare in terms of not having enough time with a provider, feeling like you're just a number in a system, having additional needs, but having to wait months or weeks or years to get the care that you deserve, or limitations that insurance places on you. Even if your doctor says, yes, you need this care, insurance might go, yeah, we're not going to pay for that. And it was really starting to wear on me. I was only 5 years into a profession, and I felt like, how am I supposed to work the next 30 some years to pay off these mountainous student loan debts? Working 12 hours a day, seeing 20 patients a day. I'd see you for about 5 minutes and then ship you off to my high school or college aide to finish the rest of your care. I just didn't feel like that was sustainable the rest of my life. So I started looking at what can I do to make a change? I was sick of being that person you would talk to who would just bitch about their job. And I wanted to be somebody who enjoyed what I worked, seeing as you spend more time working than not working. So I started exploring other jobs. I knew I didn't want a career that involved more school because I didn't want any more debt. So I started looking into firefighting. I became fire certified. I went up to Hoodsport and was working on the volunteer department. And I was so close to just giving up my profession as a PT, because I truly did enjoy working in the fire department as well. But at the end of the day, I went to school for this. I love my job and being able to provide those services. So I was like, I'm going to figure out a way to make a change. So I started doing different research, and I called up some of my old classmates. I had to tell them who I was, hey, I used to go by this name, but you remember me. It hasn't been that long. And they had actually opened their own cash pay clinics. One of them was in a CrossFit gym, and the other was an endurance athlete and was working with 3 high-level runners. And I was like, okay, guys, how's it going? How did you make this work? I think this is something I might want to explore. Where did you start? Do you have advice for me? So I felt really honored to be able to have folks to turn to get some of that initial advice, things that they did that they would have done again, things that they did that they wouldn't have done again. And I started to try to create a list of how I could make this work. One of the first things they told me, which stuck with me to this day, is to find your niche. And what I mean by that is, if I go onto Google and I find my location in Google, I'm here in West Olympia. I'm on the corner of Yager and Harrison, kind of over by Capital Medical Center. If I type in physical therapists near me, there is 7 physical therapy clinics within 1 mile of my clinic location. There's 7. So I had a lot of flack from friends and family and coworkers when I said, hey, I'm interested in starting my own clinic. And they're like, we don't need any more clinics. There's so many in this area. How are you possible? What are you going to offer that's better? Um, so I think that was really key that my friends talked to me about, is creating your niche. Is that nothing I do is trying to market to the masses. I would love to be able to help everybody, but that's not realistic. So instead of being more of a generic PT or just trying to say I'm the best at everything, I try to hone in on the things that I'm passionate about. So before I opened my clinic, before I looked at opening a business license or before I looked at a space, I really tried to sit down and think, what did I want to accomplish and what was going to be my mission? It doesn't have to be a formal mission statement or anything like that, but I just wanted to highlight things that I cared about. And that's what drives every decision I make at my job. So for me, my number one priority was to provide trans and queer competent care. Being a trans man, I have gone through the entire system here in the state of Washington. I've changed my name. I've went with judges. I've gotten all my documents changed. I have done top and bottom surgeries. I have experienced fights with insurance company over trying to get care. I've experienced doctors who don't understand. I experienced the fear of being nervous about getting in a car accident and being sent to the ER in town and going, well, what if they don't know how to treat me? And and it's already difficult enough for people to go to the doctor. It's difficult enough to tell a provider that you're in pain or that you need help. And the last thing I want to do is provide another barrier to accessing care and having people afraid to get treatment, or maybe they're pre-top surgery and they're afraid of getting their shoulder worked on because I'm going to be too close to them, or a history of trauma or all that kind of stuff. So my number one mission through creating all of this was to create a space where everybody feels accepted and embraced, and not just that it's okay that they come here, but they feel welcomed here. Along with that is I really honor our kids. I think that comes from my parents being both teachers, but I truly believe that our youth is our future. So I try to do a lot to work with young athletes in town. They don't have to be athletes, but I work with a lot of the high school sports teams, and some of our kiddos that might have developmental disabilities or anything like that. But my goal is always to put them to the forefront of my list, to try to show them I want to be a good role model to them. I want to give them care that sometimes gets falls through the cracks because they're not the ones that are necessarily in charge of their care. A lot of times it depends on what their parents value, or family financials, that kind of thing. Um, and finally, my third mission was that I wanted this to be a place where everybody felt that they could get care. I get a lot of flack being a cash pay clinic. And basically, what that means is that I don't work with any insurance companies. So oftentimes I get phone calls and they say, all right, I want to come to physical therapy. What insurances do you take? And I say, I don't take any. And they're like, click. Um, and the reason I chose to do that is because within the medical system, insurance really puts a ton of constraint on how and why we do our job. And what I mean by that is, even if you think you need care, even if your doctor thinks you need care, insurance can say, yeah, I don't think they deserve care. And there's nothing you can really do about it. So most clinics, not just in town, but around the nation, who are insurance based, have to see a certain number of people a day to keep the lights on. And unfortunately, in this world that we live in, every year that ends up being more people, because insurance decides to reimburse providers less. So instead of seeing one person an hour, you're seeing two, or you're seeing three, or you're seeing four. So at my old job, I was left seeing, 3 to 4 people per hour. I wasn't really giving good care. I was just checking the boxes so that we could get bills back. Um, Aside from that, I heard a lot of BS from insurance companies, things like, well, you're a baseball player, but you can feed yourself, so you don't really need care. Or that 12-year-old, yeah, running's not functional for a 12-year-old, so she doesn't deserve to get physical therapy. Or my personal favorite, the average person needs 8 visits to fix a shoulder, so you're already past 8. You must be fine. Doesn't matter that you're in a sling. And I just got really sick of being told by a non-medical provider how to do my job. So I wanted to create this space without insurance constraints, but also not a place that people feel that only the rich can afford. A lot of cash pay places cater to more of the high end folks, and I did not want that to be the case because most people in the queer community, most kids aren't in the high end. And I never wanted to create a space that people felt that only the rich or only the top could come to. So my policy is that no one is ever turned away from my business. I operate completely on a sliding scale, and that's all by the honor system. So I don't check finances. I have folks that aren't on the system. About 75% of the kids I see, I don't charge them at all. Um, and no, from a business perspective, is that the smartest thing to do to make money? No, but it's something I'm passionate about, and I would rather make a little bit less money and be true to who I am and my mission statement than to create a boatload of money and not be a very good person. Um, so that's kind of where I started, was creating that mission statement. And I want to throw out right away is that I have never taken a business class in my life. I am not a businessman. I've never taken a finance class. I have no background in this. I strictly studied Spanish and physical therapy. Um, I think I could probably learn a lot by taking some other classes, but I absolutely love that there are other resources out there. You don't have to have an official degree to create your own business. I still have a ton to learn, and I know that about myself. Um, but I feel pretty honored to be in the spot I am now. I have been open a year and a half, and I am at the break even point in a 1,700 square foot building where I basically do it all. I am the janitor, I am the manager, I do my own finances, I do my own taxes, I do all the website development. I'm kind of the jack of all trades right now. That's not where I hope to be one day. Um, but if it's something that you're passionate about, you can do it, even if it's not by the book, even if it's not the quote unquote standard route. Um, a little bit moving into how I started to get this place is I started doing a lot of research. I reached out to friends. Big shout out to Jen downtown at Sheer Barber Studio. They're a queer small business in Olympia. So I was like, what the heck? I'm going to go get a haircut with them and talk about business strategy. So now every month I get my haircut, we literally spend an hour talking about business strategy. They've been a great mentor because they've started businesses in the past. That's been really helpful. I worked with other professionals. I worked with a speech therapist to develop my sliding scale. So I think it's really important to highlight it's okay to ask for help. And I think you should ask for help and to pull from people that are maybe more mature than you or more advanced than you or have other resources to pull from. So I think that was really, really helpful. I also found some books on the topic. I'm not the first person in the world to create a cash pay physical therapy clinic. So I read a couple of Aaron LeBauer's books, and that gave me some kind of an outline to follow of, where do I start? Because I had my mission statement, I knew what I wanted, but there's a lot between having a mission statement and opening your door to patients. I started trying to find buildings in town and keeping some of those mission statements in mind. I wanted a space that was easy to get to. I didn't want it tucked away in some corner where nobody knew I existed. I wanted to hang my big flag in the window, which has been a blessing and a little bit of a hardship at the same time. We'll talk about that a little later. I wanted a display space that was handicap accessible with folks being able to come into the clinic easily. I didn't want some third story conference room. So I started working with different realtors in town to find a space to rent. A lot of it was daunting. Unfortunately, a lot of the business world that I found so far, whether it's working with attorneys or realtors, um, treat you as if you're dirt if you're not rich or you have a lot of experience to pull from. So it was really daunting in the beginning. I was glad I had friends and family who constantly supported me, who believed in me, because they would ask me, "Oh, I want some paperwork for you," and I'm like, "I don't even know what they're asking," and I'd have to go on and do research. Um, so I think it's cool to say that for somebody with no experience, I don't come from money. I took out a full loan to fund this clinic. I literally started with, I think I had $100 in my bank accounts. It's very daunting, but it's not impossible. One of the things I looked at, which I wish I would have learned more, is I did research online, and everything tells you that you should work with an attorney, that you should have everything by the book to create a business license. And after a 20-minute meeting, all I got was a $7,000 bill and a little license from the state of Washington saying that I have an LLC. In hindsight, I learned that that's way easier to do just on your own. It doesn't cost $7,000, but we make mistakes and we learn from them. Um, One of the other things that I spent a lot of time researching was a software that I wanted to use for my company. Uh, Being in the year 2024, I was working with a lot of businesses where things were still hand drawn on a piece of paper, and nobody wants to see my drawings. I'm not an artist, nor do I claim to be. So I wanted to find a software company that would allow me to create videos of everything, to personalize. I have an app that my patients get. I don't have to print papers. They don't have to come into the clinic and fill out paperwork. There's HIPAA compliant texting built in. Because I see less patients, what they get by coming to me is basically access to me. So I answer patient phone calls and text messages on weekends and nights while I'm on vacation. And I like to think that I can provide that service from a lot of different locations and that I don't need to sit here and stick draw how to do things for people. Um, while I started opening this clinic, there was a lot of fears that I had, fears about not having a background in business, fears about not having money, um, fears about how I was going to get patients and would patients come. I'm 30 years old. I was 29 when I started. I'd been working in the field for 5 years and I felt confident in my practice, but I also do not know everything. I still have a lot to learn and I want to continue to learn to better myself. Um, but I think a lot of folks get nervous about things that make sense. I wasn't going to have a paycheck. I was going to have to stand on my own 2 feet and pay rent every month. So I decided, okay, how can I make this more feasible? So I started to find other healthcare providers that wanted to do this with me. I had meetings with massage therapists. I had meetings with a pelvic health specialist, nutrition coach, athletic trainer, and I had this whole team that was going to come together and help me open this clinic. And I wanted to run it more like a co-op. Um, what ends up happening with folks is other folks have fears too. And when it came time to actually open the doors, all of a sudden everybody around me went, "Oh yeah, we really want that steady paycheck. I think we're gonna pass." And I'm like, "Oh shit." I signed a 5 year lease on a business, a building that costs about $3,000 a month, and now I'm on my own. So we went into a little bit of a panic mode. Decided to pick up a second job working at a nursing home. So when I first opened this, I was working 7 days a week, 4 to 5 days in the clinic, another 2 days at the nursing home on the side, trying to figure out how to pay rent as I establish patients. And I feel very blessed and honored to say that a year and a half out, I was able to quit that second job. I only work here. I'm able to pay rent every month. I'm able to pay for an apartment to live and food to eat. Are we in this grand green space? No, but I'm also not in the red. And I feel privileged to say that after less than 2 years of being open. My schedule is 100% full at this point. I'm looking to hire people, um, which I feel very proud of. And I think a lot of what your mission statement needs to be, and a lot of how I try to run my business, is that every person that comes in my door, I think of it as a referral source, and I treat them as if they matter because they do matter. Um, whether they're the ones that are getting treatment for free, whether they're the ones that are getting treatment at a reduced rate, or whether they're the ones that are picking my highest tier, I try to treat everybody the same because they all deserve care. And I almost exclusively see folks in my clinic from word of mouth. I have done the flyers downtown. I'm not very social media-ish, but I've tried to do social media videos. I have tried to support different things in town. I work with the Olympia Free Clinic. I have a booth and I help sponsor Pride. I volunteer at the Capital City Marathon every year. I sponsor probably half a dozen different youth sports teams around the city. Um, and that helps get your name out a little bit. But honestly, almost every patient I see is from somebody saying, "Hey, Trey treated me well. You should go see Trey." So I truly think if you stand behind your work, whether it's a product or a service, you need to stand behind your service and your product, and it will bring people. Um, because I started with, I don't know, 3 or 4 patients. I was seeing one patient a day and I had these big gaps. And all of a sudden I'm seeing patients from 8 in the morning to 8 at night with an hour or two break in the day, 5 days a week. And long term, no, my goal is not to work 60 hours a week with admin on the side. But I don't have kids right now. I'm able to put that time in to get it off the ground with the hopes of being able to expand it in the future to have some folks to help me. Um, Aside from starting without all of those resources, another difficulty I've experienced is, which was surprising to me in Olympia, I feel like we're a very prominent queer community, is that I've actually experienced a lot of hatred towards being a queer and trans provider. My rainbow flag in the window is a big old target. It seems to be in the past year. I've had my windows smashed 5 times, including this last about a month ago. Someone actually broke in and stole things. And I get a lot of folks telling me, well, just take your flag down. Just don't be so prominent. Why don't you just hide who you are a little more? That's not the point. I created this space to be a queer provider. I want folks to feel safe here. I want them to feel that they have a space that's for them. So my flag still hangs. Now it's another one because my first one got stolen. Um, and I'm hoping that in time that I like to believe humanity will improve itself and that we will become a better society. So every day I feel blessed when I come to work and my windows are intact. Um, but I do that on purpose, and I don't feel that it's fair of me to cave in to other people's hatred, because then I'm not any better than them. I want to show folks that I'm not going anywhere, that we're not going anywhere, and that we should be able to provide services to everybody. And just because I hang a rainbow flag up doesn't mean you have to be queer to come to me. I see plenty of old cis white guys who probably don't even know what the rainbow flag means. They get care too. So I think it's important to note that just because I target a certain audience doesn't mean that I won't see other people. It just means that this is who I'm really aiming for. Um, Kind of based on where I've been right now. I'm at that break even pay phase. I'm past my I'm continuing with that mission statement, but now what I'm trying to do is set goals for the future, both short and long term, in terms of um, how I can do better outreach to some of the youth programs. I'm trying to work with some of the coaches in town. I'm always been an endurance athlete, so I've been trying to contact some of the local cross country coaches and do some injury prevention programs. That's another thing that insurance doesn't like to cover is prevention. In our healthcare system, we like to focus on fixing after it's been a problem. But if you don't go to the doctor and say, I'm struggling with this. It's not bad, but I'm starting to feel something come on. Usually they just say, well, let's wait and see. Or, you know, um, let's not worry about preventing diseases or let's not worry about preventing injury. We'll just do the surgery after you've torn something. So I've really been trying to work, especially with our youth, about preventing things, because psychologically, not only financially, but psychologically, it's really hard on anybody to be out of their life for 6 months, 9 months, a year. So it's faster, it's easier. It should be cheaper to prevent than it should be to wait until everything hits the fan and we have to now fix, um, which of course regular insurance doesn't want to cover. So I've been really trying to work with some coaches in town and some folks on trying to learn how to prevent injuries, especially during this crappy winter, um, when they're in between seasons. Some other things I'm trying to look to do is like I mentioned before, is to try to get some help. I've made it happen by myself, but I wouldn't wish that you'd have to make your business on your own. I really want to find some more folks to help me, um, not only so that I can see more people and be able to help more folks, but just so I don't have to do it all myself. And everybody has areas that they are better in than others. For me, I was fortunate during the COVID pandemic that I went to work every day. So this is one of the only Zoom presentations I've given in my life. I don't even know how to work half the buttons, because I didn't work on Zoom. I went in every day. I didn't have class on the computer. So some of my social media stuff, I'm 30 years old. I should be better at it, but I don't enjoy computer stuff and I need to learn more. Um, so I really would love one day to be able to hire one of these young kiddos to be able to help me out, with all the social media stuff. That's one thing that I use in the clinic as well, in terms of I see a lot of folks not traditional, I call it cash pay, but I don't take money from some folks as well. And what I mean by that is I do trades with people. Um, I have a somebody who, Jen cuts my hair. I have somebody else who helps sometimes with some of the cleaning. I have a yoga instructor that we trade back and forth. And I think it's cool to be able to pull in some of those kind of old history things like we used to do back in the day, because as a business owner, you get to kind of decide how you want to run things. And I don't think it has to be payment with physical money to make things work. So I've been blessed to be surrounded by a lot of folks like that, everybody has something to offer. So that's where I would like to expand more in the future is to get folks to help me with some of the social media stuff, folks to help me with some of the admin duties that I just don't enjoy doing or that I don't have time to do. Um, I know that I'm not anywhere near a full hour, but I wanted to pause just for a little bit here and just to see if there's questions or concerns that were popping up from anybody. Um, Feel free to, I don't even know how this chat works, but feel free to shoot me questions or concerns if you have anything that you want me to go more in depth on. Yeah, that's a great question. I was a Spanish major in college. I actually lived in Salamanca, Spain for 6 months. So at about a decade ago, I would say I was very fluent. Now it's a little more rusty. My goal in the beginning with taking Spanish is that I wanted to be able to provide services to folks that were non-native speakers, especially when you not only if you're sick or have an injury, but just in general, I think it's more comfortable for folks who are in maybe a nervous situation or in a new situation to be able to speak their own language. To be honest, I've been a little bit disappointed. I haven't seen a lot of Spanish speaking folks in Washington. I actually saw a lot more when I was in Wisconsin. We had a lot of migrant farm workers in the area that I lived. So I'm definitely open to seeing folks in the community. I think since I've opened this, I've only seen one person who spoke Spanish. Um, I think aside from learning a new language, what really helped me with that is learning that, especially living in a different country, was learning that just because something is different doesn't mean it's wrong. I think I think especially in the US, we get kind of these egocentric sunglasses on where we think that this is the way everything should be done. And if you don't do it this way, that it's wrong. So I think it was cool to learn about a different culture and to learn that there is more than one way to cross the finish line. There is more than one way to get the job done. Um, but yes, in the future, I do hope that I can work with more of the Hispanic population. Um, yeah, it was a great question. No, it is not. I get that a lot because I used the name Evergreen. I was doing that more just because I like the forest and trees. But no, I'm pretty close to campus. I would say like a mile-ish. I am on the corner of Yager and Harrison. I am in the same parking lot as the West Olympia Pharmacy, and I'm kitty corner from Capital Medical Center, the hospital. So I'm very close. You could walk, but I'm not on campus. Great question. So a couple things that helped me. One was when I found the building that I'm in. This building used to be a medical supply store. It hadn't been operational for about 10 years. So this building had shag green carpeting. There was these ugly blinds on all the windows. There was like paneling on the walls from where they used to hang stuff. Half the lights were gone. So obviously it was going to need a lot of work. And I talked to the realtors and I'm like, hey, your clinic's been sitting empty here. It obviously hadn't been making rent. Would you be able to give me, are you open to giving me any funds to replenish some of the stuff? It's going to need paint. It's going to need new floors. It's going to need lights. So I was actually able to get so much money per square foot to help with some of the remodel. And that covered about 90% of the remodeling costs. I think I ended up paying my own flooring and I paid to make the bathroom ADA accessible. I still think that should be a law that they should have to pay for, but I ended up going to Home Depot and like toilet shopping. So that helps with a lot of those initial costs in the physical building. And then the other difficulty I had, which I didn't realize, is that all of the banks that I was trying to go to get like a business startup loan was super frustrating because they would say things like, oh, well, you need to have a 3-year history of your business to qualify for a loan. And I'm like, but I'm a new business. How do I qualify? And they're like, well, then you don't get a loan. And I'm like, how do I start if no one's going to take a chance on me? So I actually ended up taking out a very large personal loan from the credit union, and I've used that to start the business. Um, and that's pretty much everything I had to start from. I didn't have a savings. I didn't have anything else to pull from. I didn't have family support of money, of monetary support coming in. I pretty much just did the realtors helping with some of the initial construction costs and then the personal loan from the bank, and then picking up a second job. Great question. So I actually started with my own doctors. So I actually created I was really frustrated after a lot of trans surgeries. There isn't information out there. After any other type of surgery, I'm talking ACL, Achilles, total joints, rotator cuff, any of your standard kind of physical therapy surgeries, I can Google physical therapy protocol ACL, and like hundreds of protocols come up with guidelines that give you somewhere to follow. But if you type in, post-op top surgery or post-op phalloplasty, like there is nothing. And surgeons are really good at what they do in terms of surgery. But in terms of rehab, usually the consensus is do nothing for like 6 weeks to 12 weeks and then resume normal activities. Like, what the hell does that mean? Does that mean at 6 weeks I should lay in bed and then at 6 weeks and one day I should do pull-ups? Like, I don't know what resume normal activities means. Um, so what I actually created after all of my surgeries was I created a 8 week post-op protocol, starting with like day one, what you do. And it was what I used for myself. And then I made those all free on my website. So if anybody wants resources, if you go to evergreenwellnesscompany.com, if you click on trans health, there are links to free PDF downloads of for both top surgery and phalloplasty. And then I also made a full YouTube video showing all of the exercises in person. They're completely free. I don't charge for them because I don't believe that I should be able to harness care from other people. I think everybody should have access. So I actually contacted my top surgeon. I contacted my bottom surgeon in San Francisco. I worked with my primary care provider and I said, hey, this is what I'm offering. Here's my business card. Here is the PDF files of the programs I've made. I'd love your feedback. And those folks were pretty good about giving me feedback and sharing with other patients. And then I went online and I looked up trans surgeons like across the nation, and I sent out like 100 some emails sharing this. I didn't get great responses back from like any of them, but I at least tried. The other thing I did is I went around to Olympia and I took business cards and pamphlets to every single primary care provider that I could find, just to say, hey, I'm a new physical therapy clinic. This is what I'm about. I'd love it if you shared with patients, or if you have anybody that needs care, I'm here. I did get a couple patients from that, but honestly, I still got 99% of my patients from word of mouth. PT is a little bit different in terms of a business. So I think for a lot of businesses, you think your outcome, or I would anticipate a lot of businesses' outcomes would be to retain the most people, or to get the most customers, or to grow your caseload. And for PT, it's a little bit the opposite. I find success when a patient says, I don't need you anymore, Trey. My goal as a provider is not to say, and this is where insurance was driving me a little bit nuts, is the classic PT standpoint is, all right, you're injured, you're going to come see me twice a week for 8 weeks, where I work with you for 5 minutes and my aides work with you for 55 minutes. So it's going to take you 8 weeks to learn at 5 minute chunks. Because I see everybody for an hour one-on-one, I might see folks once or twice or a small handful of times. And my goal every time is to teach something. Yes, I do hands-on work as well, but my true goal is to say, all right, this is what's going on with you. This is the anatomy behind it. This is why you're in pain. This is the strategies that we're going to use to get you out of pain. And I want to put that on you, because I want you to learn how to take care of your body so that in the future, you know what to do. Most injuries, shy of some surgeries, most injuries are not things that you do for 2 weeks or you do for a month and then you forget about the rest of your life. Otherwise, you keep coming to see me. So I love empowering folks to be able to be their own ambassadors for pain control, their own ambassadors for mobility work and lifestyle work. So it sounds funny, but I measure success when my patients leave me. I think the biggest thing that you can do is to stand up for yourself and to know that just because you're assigned this doctor, just because you went and saw one provider, does not mean you are stuck with them. I think a lot of folks, whether you're in the queer community or maybe an underserved population, you feel that this is your primary care doctor or this is your surgeon or whatever, and that, well, this is who I got and I should be happy to have any doctor. No, if you don't like them, leave. You're allowed to get a different doctor. You're allowed to get second opinions. I always encourage my patients, if they're going to be getting any kind of surgery, to not sign on the dotted line for the first person you talk to. I want a minimum of two opinions. Um, because I think a lot of folks, which is frustrating in the medical community, and I hate that so many people do this, is a lot of medical providers medical explain things to you, and that's great that they can shout out all these highfalutin words, but what does that actually mean to you? What do you need to know about it? And if somebody can't sit down and explain why they're doing something, then you probably need a different provider. So I think the biggest thing is to be confident in yourself and to realize that you do deserve care and you deserve good care. And if you're not getting it there, then you deserve someone else. Um, that would be my number one advice. Ooh, that's a great question. Um, I haven't looked a ton at having different volunteer help. I guess the closest I get is some of the kiddos I work with will come in and help on the side. I've had them help with some of the janitorial stuff. I've had them help with, hey, can you take this to school and pass out these flyers on this class for me? That kind of stuff, more as like a trade for services I'm giving them. But I haven't looked into the volunteering with people here. I'm going to be starting, hopefully in the new year, spending one day a week or certain hours volunteering myself at the free clinic in Olympia, because I think that's super important to support healthcare for everybody. But that's a great point, and that's something I can definitely look into in the future. Great question. So this was interesting. In PT school, we did a project. I think prior to PT school, I don't know if everybody experienced this, but whether it be history or social studies or science classes, I feel like everything we learned in school was about how great the US was. And if we talked about another country, it was about how bad they were, um, which obviously I do not agree with. But I think PT school was the first time that we actually had a project that discussed other countries and how we could better ourselves. And we basically created this big chart about healthcare. And it was questions like, who pays for healthcare? Um, do you have a primary care doctor? Are they gatekeeping? Are they kind of saying who sends you to referrals or specialists, or can you pick yourself? And down the list, there was all these questions about healthcare. And then it was all the what we consider the kind of the developed countries of the world. It was us, and it was Great Britain and China and Germany and Canada, and all of these larger countries. And what was super interesting about this project is to every single question, the answer down the line of these countries was yes, 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 yes. And then when we got to the US, everything was no, no, no. And I was like, okay, so why are we trying to reinvent the wheel? Because all these other countries figured it out. So I think we would do better as a society. And I'm not a politician. I obviously there's a lot that I don't know about how things work, but I don't think we need to be doing things different than the whole rest of the world. If the whole rest of the world has figured out how to give healthcare to their population, then maybe we should take a lesson from them. But I don't believe that healthcare should be something that you have to pay for. I don't believe you should get better care if you're rich than if you're poor. I don't believe that healthcare should be something that is gatekept by insurance companies who aren't medical providers. I think if a doctor says you need something, that you should get it. It shouldn't be, oh, well, your plan doesn't include that, so you don't deserve this care. Um, Again, I don't know how we get from where we are now to that point in the world, but I would absolutely love to get to that point. Don't even get me started on school loans. I would love to get to the point where education is a right of the population, not a privilege to the rich. Um, if anybody has a solution for that, I will vote for you. Yeah, great question. So I tried to do a lot of tools online. There's different small business resources from Washington State that I looked up that were actually really helpful about giving you like a checklist, because I'm like, okay, I literally don't know anything about business. I never in my wildest dreams thought I was going to be a businessman. I'm like, where do I start? And some of those earliest checkoffs were things like, creating a name for your business, creating, and for me, having a professional license, I'm a PLLC, but creating like an LLC and how to go about that. And Washington State actually does pretty good about listing that all out. Things about liability insurance. I don't work for somebody now who pays my insurance. I have to make sure that we're covered here. Insurance on the building, and the realtors require specific things for that. Um, what other tools did I use? More specifically towards physical therapy, I read some of those books on other providers, and I think that was really useful in terms of how I set up my business strategy, in terms of, knowing that I wanted to operate on a sliding scale. Um, for myself, I picked apart different phases of physical therapy. So I offer PT, but I also offer just sports massages. It doesn't have to be for athletes, but basically just massages. I also do just training style things depending on what folks need. So I think that was helpful in the beginning to get more folks in the door. Um, and then just picking people's brains from business owners in town and or other PTs to go, what worked for you and what didn't. And that's what really helped lead me towards marketing towards that niche. Before that, I just thought, well, if I just post a lot of social media videos, or I just talk about being a PT, like people will just come. And it was through talking with some of those folks that they were like, you need to target a specific sector of the population, not the masses, because you're never, if you target the masses, what happens is you get nobody. So I really thought it was helpful to pull. I feel like I learned more talking to other people than I did any online resource, any book, because they could give real world experience. Ooh, that's a good question. That's tricky. Um, I think one of the things that has helped me the most is just folks sharing about different resources. So, for example, um, through meeting different small businesses in the community, we all kind of share each other's. So, for example, on my website, I have an entire page dedicated to community outreach. So I list that I know of, and people can always add, but I basically list out with links to websites every single queer competent healthcare provider that I know of, to try to show support for other small businesses and other providers that have the same mission that I do. Most of us also hold business cards for other providers in office. So if someone comes to me and say, "Hey Trey, I love my PT, but I'd really like some chiropractic care. I'd really like, do you have a good primary care doctor recommendation?" All that kind of stuff, is I have those lists to pull from. So I think honestly, just word of mouth, bringing up in conversations, and or not being afraid to try a new space. Um, how I got connected with a lot of these providers was, I was like, I just go to the, Great Clips or whatever to get a haircut, but I really wanted to reach out to this other small business owner. I'm like, well, I think the easiest way to do that is to just book one of their services. So I went down there and started working with Jen, and that has been really cool to be able to use them to connect to other providers, because they were more established than I was. So I think, giving new businesses a chance, and being able to network between different businesses is super cool. I'm trying to think what else. I'm still trying to think of ways to expand and work more with the community. Um, I think for me, trying to reach out to different youth groups and to different events. Pretty much, if someone contacts me and asks for a sponsorship, I try to help sponsor them. Again, from a business perspective, I don't have this excess money, but I think it's really important that we do support one another. I have enough money to buy food and a place to live, so I'm not in a place that I feel like I can't say yes to those things. I'm going to be going tomorrow to the free clinic, to their sponsorship breakfast, and trying to talk there. So I think it's cool to be able to volunteer and promote some of these other organizations, and not be afraid, even if it's not money that you can donate, whether it's time or discussion or just sharing, that's super important in our community. Great questions. I'll kind of link them together a little bit. I would tell my younger self, or a young individual trying to open a clinic, to believe in yourself. I think for so much of my life, I was absolutely miserable. I was suicidal. I didn't want to wake up every day because I just felt that there wasn't space for me in this world, and that nobody would understand, and that nobody was like me. I just felt so different, which is a really freaking sad way to live. And it was through meeting different people and through having community and spaces like this that made me believe that I can take up space, and I should take up space, and that I'm not the only one out there. I'm not this alien. Um, So I wish that some of our younger folks could see that, and that's why I want to be prominent in this community, and not just in Olympia, but to the trans and queer community, um, is to show younger folks that there is hope and there is a future. Um, and then as you're starting that small business, it's not if you're going to hit struggles, it's when. And I think that it's super important to see not only those small goals in front of you, but also to see the big picture, that just because you have a bad month, or just because someone comes and smashes your windows, or just because you have a hard day, doesn't mean it's all over. It doesn't mean your business is done with. It just means that you still have learning to do. And I think as long as we're still learning every day, that you're going to progress and you're going to succeed. I don't think anything in life is handed to us on a silver platter, nor should it be. So I think as long as you're willing to continue working and to continue to learn, that you will succeed.
I think those are powerful and beautiful words to end on. Before I ask everyone to show their appreciation, comments, you're awesome. Thank you for your great presentation. You are needed and you are loved. Keep up the great work.
Thank you guys. Appreciate y'all.
Trey, thank you. I want to take a pause. Folks in the audience, if we can either just say thanks in the chat, emojis. Trey, I want to thank you for not only your time today, but your willingness to share your story, your wisdom, and your inspiration. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to get to talk with y'all.